Today on Brilliance Business TV, we have Richard Selwyn-Barnett, founder of itiswhoyouknow.com, iconic introductions of creative, successful and talented people in the entertainment industries. Stay tuned. Welcome to Brilliance Business TV, conversations with leading experts in business. I am your host, Mark Stephen Pooler. We have a wonderful guest today, a friend that I have recently made, Richard Selwyn-Barnett. Let me ask you what you think about this. It's not what you know, it's who you know. I really believe this statement has so much power when you are looking to build connections, build your business, build your profile. Well, we have the man to talk all about iconic introductions. So stay tuned for that. I just want to make an official shout out to our show sponsors, Dreamweaver Artist Ranch, our new show sponsors. So hey, Dreamweaver Artist Ranch. We are streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. We're also streaming on MSPnewsglobal.com. We're also on the E360 TV network under Fresh Takes, going out to Apple TV, Fire TV, Android TV, Roku, and many more. Let's bring in our incredible guest, Richard Selwyn-Barnett. Richard, welcome to Brilliance Business TV.
Lovely to be here, Mark, and nice to see you again. It's been just over 2 weeks since we did our first meeting at the Grove Hotel. You came to the relaunch of the Funky Shirt Lunch Club.
I certainly did. I had an absolutely amazing time, Richard. We will talk a lot more about that today. So I open the show, Richard, on it's not what you know, it's who you know. Give us your thoughts on that to start with.
Well, I think that you couldn't say it better. The words are true. You might be the greatest, songwriter in the world, but if you don't know the right producers, engineers, managers, talent agents, record labels, if you just know them, but know of them, but you don't actually personally know them, or you haven't been introduced to them, then that's one great example. And it was said early on by someone that I'd done about 50 odd introductions for in the first year that I'd met them back in the 80s. And he said, well, I'd like to say that you can take anyone from zero to hero because of who you know. And that was a powerful statement.
It's an opening of a door, isn't it? Because if you don't know people, it's very hard to get that door open, Richard. Just take us back a little bit to your past and background that has led you to the work you do with iconic introductions.
Well, I sort of grew up in the suburbs of North London, Woodside Park, back in the late 60s, early 70s. I was born in 67. Traditional sort of, so it was a Jewish household, but not very religious, just not nice sort of, easygoing kind of friends, neighbours, family. The family was successful. One part of the family was incredibly successful in hotels, offices, private hospitals, that kind of thing. And eventually vineyards and, big film distribution and stuff like that. And many other great success stories within the family. My side of it was my father was, well, he's now retired, he's still around, but he was an orthodontist specializing in straightening people's teeth. I mean, mine are no great example, but he had a celebrity clientele. And the problem he had was he was unable to share that celebrity clientele with me or with anyone, because it was obviously, sort of like the doctor-patient confidentiality. So I learned growing up that I was never going to follow in his footsteps or be in any family business whatsoever. No one was going to help me. I had to do things on my own, do my own thing effectively. So I grew up, I was never academic at school. I actually didn't even really love school. It was okay. I went through the motions with it. I ended up with sort of 4 O levels back in '83, grade C, so nothing special. Went to work in the city straight away. I mean, I literally worked for a firm of money brokers who were part of, well, they were Mills and Allen, that was the parent company, but Pearl and Dean, which was big cinema advertising, used to see all the time throughout the 70s. And the idea was to work for Mills and Allen. Mills and Allen was the billboard company. Pearl and Dean was the advertising side of it. And then there was obviously Parle Savage. And I worked for them for about 10 or 11 months. And every lunchtime I would go across London Bridge in my suit. I always wore a Gives and Hawkes suit, very sharp, from number 1 Savile Row. I felt different from everybody else around me. Does that make sense?
It does, yes.
And I had this sort of inner drive. I wanted to be, effectively in the Guinness Book of Records. I was no athlete, and certainly I couldn't sing. So, what was I going to do with my life or my career? So what really initially inspired me, other than family and friends around me during, the sort of scrank in the 70s and the 80s, was a guy called Julian Richer, who started a brand retail shop called Richer Sounds. And the idea was that basically he would, cut the cost of stereos, audio, and televisions and stuff like that, VHS, units, sell them to his customers, but also really inspire his staff and his customers to interact and immerse themselves in that whole world. And he said to me once, "I'm going to be in the Guinness Book of Records." And I sort of thought, "Are you really?" That's what I think. But, and actually the truth is that retail shop in London Bridge, still there, I believe, is in the Guinness World Records for the last sort of 20 odd years or even longer. It's the highest sales of any sort of stereo shop or audio shop per square foot in the world. Then he rolled out the brand. But what I did take from Julian Richer, I've never introduced him to anybody in the future. I met Dave Robinson, who worked for him, and I met another guy who was Cambridge Audio. But I met a lot of people around him, but never really reconnected with him again. He said to me, "Richard, love what you do, love your customers, love your clients. Great, get the best product knowledge you can. Offer a better warranty, for example, than John Lewis. John Lewis was doing 5-year warranties on televisions. Julian Richer did 6 years, He was a game changer. He said, "Look, you haven't got to sort of reinvent the wheel, Richard. You've got to redesign the wheel." And that was sort of one of my kind of mentors, if you like. And I thought, well, that's good advice. So I walked back to my office. I wasn't feeling great. I was, it was a cold day. This time of year, end of October and beginning of November. It's raining and stuff. And I walked in the office and I just went up to the 5th floor, and I was doing telex checking, which was about £3,000 a year salary then in 1984. And long story short, I thought, well, I'm going to go up and see the chairman, who's on the 8th floor, the very top of the building, overlooking the Thames, and have a word with him and see if I can get promoted or something. I've been here nearly a year, I believe in myself. I've got a lot of confidence. So with that in mind, I had this Julian Richer thing, in the back of my head going round and round and round. And I went up to see this guy, and I walked in his office. And obviously, I didn't have an appointment. I work on the 5th floor. You don't know who I am. You've got hundreds of employees. I'd like to see if I can become maybe a money broker or something. So I've really thought about, let's make money. Then when I've got money, I can go and travel the world and live the life, right? But he sort of looked me up and down. He was a bit condescending, a bit patronizing. He said, no, you'll have to come back another time, go and see someone down on the 5th floor and make an appointment. He wasn't very friendly, let's call it that way. So I started taking my tie off, right? which I just don't know why I did it. And I looked across the Thames and I saw, across sort of towards London Bridge station. And I just took my tie off and I looked at him and I said, "You know what, Derek? I've heard what you had to say. Now, why don't you go fuck yourself?" And that was the start of something, a journey that I could never have imagined would ever, happen or come true in my life. And that was me sacking myself from a very powerful entity in the city of London, probably blacklisting myself from the city, being a bit of a rebel maybe. And when I went home, obviously I had to tell my parents, my friends what I'd done. Everybody was, they couldn't believe it, And I ended up working for a month in Selfridges, the store. But I was working, filling cars with petrol, parking them in the car park. It was December, freezing cold. The IRA had bombed Harrods the year before. It was all that kind of stuff. So, and I'd actually survived that Harrods bombing because I was in town 2 streets away from Harrods when the bomb went off. So that was interesting. But, that was and then I thought, well, I can't be filling cars up with petrol and parking, Mercedes, Jaguars and Bentleys in the car park all my life. I'm not born to do that. So you've asked me my backstory. I'll just try and keep it brief. So in '85, I walked into a local office where I lived in Woodside Park. It was a tiny little office. It had 2 desks in it, and it was an estate agent. The guy instantly liked me, gave me a job, and I was his kind of sales guy. And I was looking for properties to sort of refurbish, restore, if you like, but basic property deals. Yeah. So I made quite a lot of money. And then in October '85, I did my first independent deal that I pulled together, which was a very old friend of mine who I knew from Totteridge, lived in a mansion near Mickey Most, who run RAK Records in St John's Wood. He had Susie Quattro signed and Mud and people like that. It was like Millionaires Row. It was all these beautiful big mansions in a big country lane, Totteridge Village it was. And I found him. Another friend of mine, his parents were selling this bungalow on this massive plot in North London, which was an amazing private driveway up to this huge, amazing thing with this garden and bungalow. And I pulled the 2 of them together at the Orange Tree pub in October '85. So literally 36 years ago to more or less today, or a few days, I think it was on the 10th of October. And they shook hands and they did a deal. Nothing was put in writing. And so my friend, if you like, Jonathan, effectively, he bought the plot off this other guy, and they said, look, we'll look after you. Okay. So I'm thinking, okay, that's a great deal. 8 months later, they started building the things. It was all done. And I met up with them again, and Jonathan gave me a deposit for my first apartment. So when I was 19, I bought my first flat, never rented, always bought. And then the other guy gave me money to buy an Alfa Romeo car. Sorry, I got a BMW later on. So that was kind of the start of this thing. And then from that introduction onwards, I could not stop introducing people. It never stopped.
It's great hearing your backstory, Richard, and those little steps that you have taken have put all the pieces together of where you are now. And tell us a little bit about, and also, Richard, what a great first introduction. That's a great result, having a deposit paid on a flat and also having a car, just for introducing 2 people, so I can understand why you got the buzz for iconic introductions.
Yeah, I mean, that's just, as I say, that was just one example. The other introductions that were made were kind of more in the sort of entertainment creative worlds. I was much more interested in music and film. However, I did like art, antiques, architecture, buildings, design, fashion. I had a very broad interest, let's call it, yeah. But I always felt if I know someone and I know someone else, I could bring those people together. Now, a lot of people call that like networking, but I went to a couple of networking events and I didn't like it. It was too many people, too noisy, people with business cards giving them to other people, too much chaos, if you like. And I mean, I kind of gave out a few of my cards. I had some printed, actually, but I never really got into that at all, to be honest.
Share a little bit about your business, iconic introductions, and how you support your clients, Richard.
The way I support them really is I don't just do 1 or 2 introductions. Occasionally I will do that and they say, that's great, thank you very much, well done. But I try and give them support by introducing them to people further down the line. I continue to do that throughout if they sort of want to if a writer who's written a book says, "Can you introduce me to a film director, a film producer, and a music composer?" I can do 3 introductions pretty quickly, 3 phone calls, and it's done.
Yes, and we will talk a little bit more about the amazing introductions that you do. We are going to a commercial break, Richard, so stay where you are, and we will discuss a lot more in detail after the commercial break. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for part 1 of Brilliance Business TV. We are joined with the incredible Richard Selwyn-Barnett, and our discussion today is the power of iconic introductions.
Hello, this is Stephen Buckner, and just wanted to tell you I support the Dreamweaver project. It's a great project where artists such as myself will be able to come together and basically collaborate, and to have a retreat to feel accepted and welcome. And that's something that artists here and around the world could always benefit from. So I just want to say, please support the Dreamweaver project. I think it's for a great cause, and I salute all the independent artists out there and artists that are signed as well. And have a wonderful day.
Welcome back to Brilliance Business TV, conversations with leading experts in business. Welcome back, Richard. It's great to be having a conversation with you today. My next question, Richard, share a little bit about how iconic introductions that you do is different to networking.
Well, as I said, I think networking, for example, would be when you go to a hotel and you meet, 50 people who are doing different businesses, and you give out your business card and you have a few drinks, and it's quite a nice networking event. Or you could be playing a game of golf, and then during that round of golf, you'll meet people and you might network back in the clubhouse. So there's various ways in which networking happens, and there are just, specific networking events. My thing was always different. I always felt that here I am, I know loads of people, right? And I've been introduced to a lot of people. Now, those people may well have heard of each other, but they may not actually know each other. So I felt that I should introduce them very specifically, laser beam focused, sort of targeted introductions, which are relevant to what they're doing. And they're also meeting like-minded individuals who they can share, their passions and their interests and their sort of hobbies, if you like. And it became a bit more social. So we did it over breakfast, lunch, or dinner, starting in October '85, by the way. And it's just never, ever, as I said, it's never really stopped. I've tried to filter it down over the years slightly to different types of introductions, but it still comes back to that fact that, Richard, I get calls from, it could be A-listers, could be celebrities, can be household names, can be, accountants and solicitors, managers, and lawyers, whatever people, creative artists, anyone who wants to be introduced would call me. What I tend not to do is I don't really introduce, the local florist to the local sort of accountant. That's networking for you.
I hear you.
That's not my thing.
It really is unique what you're doing.
That's magic.
You have such a database of real big iconic names. I've got a big experience of this. We'll talk about that shortly. You went off to Hollywood when you was 20 years old, didn't you, Richard?
That's correct. That's quite a funny story, and it's got an interesting twist. But I was over. I basically I had my apartment in '86. Had my Alfa Romeo. I then sold that Alfa Romeo, bought a Mazda RX-7, which was a lovely car at the time with pop-up headlights, And I fancied going to visit my girlfriend at the time, who was over in sort of Denmark, if you like. So I thought, I'm going to drive a left-hand drive car. So I went up north to Preston and bought a one-owner, low mileage, red Porsche 924 Turbo left-hand drive, quite a rare car at the time. And I had that and the RX-7, and I had, you know, parked in my underground car park in my flat. And I took a boat across from Harwich to Denmark and drove this Porsche across and hung out with her for a week or two. And then I thought, well, I'm out here now, and I fancied going up to see an ex-girlfriend actually in Gothenburg, right? So I went up on the boat from, I think it was at the top of Jutland. You go across to Frederikshavn or something, Frederiksberg. It's a short ferry ride. Drove up on a brilliant road trip up through Sweden, got to Gothenburg, you know, in my Porsche. And I met this girl who I knew really well. You know, she'd been an au pair girl in the sort of mid-80s. And she showed me around Gothenburg. It was great. You know, we were going out having fun. And then a friend of mine, he was visiting back from LA at the time. He was visiting his mother. And I rang him, you know, at his mum's house. And he said, look, I'm going back to LA. He said, Richard, he said, look, when you come out there, I'm going to introduce you to an absolute icon of the music industry called David Geffen, who's a friend of mine. He said, I'm going to get you into the music business. I thought, great, LA, music industry, Geffen, can't be too bad. So I said to this girl in Sweden, I said, look, I'm going to, you know, we'll go to the Sheraton for lunch or something. And as I came out the Sheraton, my Porsche was parked next to a red Lamborghini. The guy was coming out with his girlfriend, and he said, oh, do you want to sell your car? And I said, not really, but, well, make me an offer. He did. We walked down to a bank. He got the money out. He gave me the money, and I flew home first class. I said to this girl, Vicky, I said, look, I'll see you in LA. I'll see you in New York, you know. So I flew back to England, got myself ready, I booked some flights, you know, and I flew out to Los Angeles, you know, with all hopes and intentions of meeting David Geffen, getting into the music industry. Didn't happen. When I got to the airport, this guy picked me up in a rusty Ford Pinto. I slept on his grandmother's couch for a few nights, you know. He took me to, I think it was the Beverly Center, which was kind of this sort of shopping mall place. At the very top was a sports bar. And, you know, I was sort of basically, you know, buying him drinks, saying thanks for, you know, bringing me to LA. And, you know, it's my first time out here and it's great, you know, Hollywood, whatever. And I looked down and he said, look, I'm going to get the food in. Don't worry, I'll get all the food in. I said, okay. So they kept bringing around all this pizza. It's like, oh, it's great, you know. And as I looked down the end of the bar, it said happy hour, you know, drinks 2 for 1 or whatever, and you get free pizza. So this guy led me on. He sort of told me a load of like bullshit to get me out to LA. Yeah. Anyway, so I wasn't too happy. But long story short was we went to Sunset Boulevard and the Sunset Strip, and there was Tower Records on the corner. And he said, look, go and get a job there or something. You'll be in the music industry. So I was pretty annoyed. And I thought, again, that's a waste of my time, really. It's not a bad job. I don't want to work behind a counter selling vinyl, you know, or CDs at the time. So this is 87 now. So I phoned home, and I was disappointed. I was never introduced or got to meet David Geffen. So as I phoned home, my uncle Peter was visiting from, he lived down in Birchington, near here. And my mum said, oh, Uncle Peter's here. You know, you can talk about cricket and red wine and whatever. He loved wine and cricket. Lovely man. And he said, where are you? And I said, I'm in Los Angeles, but I'm probably going to come home. I was going to stay for 3 or 4 months, but, you know, I don't really know many people out here. I'm going to come home. So the upshot of this was, he said, oh, don't worry. He said, I've got one of the best connections out there for you. My old buddy from the war, we fought in the Second World War together in Monte Cassino and, you know, Dunkirk and stuff like that, is Andrew Thewlis. And I said, I've never heard of him. He said, well, he's the secretary of Walt Disney. So I thought that's top notch, top level. You know, that's up there with sort of the Hollywood moguls, the old moguls, you know, that we all sort of have read about. So he said, here's his landline, and you give him a ring. So I thought, well, what am I going to say to this guy? You know, Uncle Peter told me to ring you, you know. So I rang up this Andy Thewlis, and I left a message on his, then it was an answer phone, not a voicemail. And I was still staying on this grandmother's sofa, which is a very nice lady. And he rang me back, and he said, oh, look, if you can meet me for tennis at the, I think it was the Beverly Hills Country Club, yeah, tomorrow about 11 o'clock, I'll buy you lunch, and we'll play a game of tennis, and then we'll have lunch. I said, okay, great. Thinking, I can't play tennis. You know, I'm pretty useless at stuff like that. I can try. So I went straight back down to the Beverley Centre. You know, went to the sports place, got myself some tennis whites, and you know, I bought an MGM baseball hat, a pair of Ray-Bans at the time. Came out and thought, I can't turn up to the Beverly Hills Country Club in a taxi cab. That's not Richard Selwyn-Barnett, you know. So I walked around and I saw Prestige car rental place or something. I walked in and I hired a Corvette convertible, brand new, right? So I got this Corvette. I'm looking like, you know, kind of looking, you know, that's sort of, they call it the film star thing. Yeah? So I'm driving along, you know, tennis white, baseball cap, Ray-Bans, Corvette, music on. There's no sat nav in those days. So eventually I got up to this country club, 5 to 11, yeah. So went in, valet parking, it was very nice, and met this guy. And we played tennis. He beat me at tennis. He was in his mid-60s then. I was 20 years old. You know, what did I know? But I'd already done 2 really good solid years of introductions here in the UK. So I'm now a small fish in a big pond, yeah? Okay, so he said, look, after lunch or something, you know, I've got to go and a couple of meetings and stuff like that, but pop round tomorrow for coffee, meet the wife, or, you know, whatever it was, up in somewhere like Brentwood Hills or Bel Air. It was really mansions, you know, beautiful. Beverly, it was above Beverly Hills. So I went round there, and he had something. It was similar to this. I've got to show you. It wasn't quite this, but it was this sort of system where you have a. Can you see? It's like the old index cards. I don't know if you can see
yes.
that. Yeah. So like you've got, you know. So he had one of those on his desk, and he said, "Look, I'll leave you here for a while. Go through the A to Z of my connections in Hollywood, and pick out a few people who you'd like to speak to or do business with." So I'm going through this A to Z, and I've got, you know, Jack Nicholson, David Putnam, and Robert De Niro, and Hugh Hefner, and all these kind of, you know, iconic people, right? So I'm writing down, you know, names, you know, phone numbers, fax numbers, stuff like that. I think even Kiefer Sutherland was in there, you know. So I thought, right, okay, I've done that now. I've taken a few of his contacts. What am I going to do with them? Because I don't know these people. I will never cold call anyone. You know, so cold calling is my pet hate, by the way. Yeah. I like a warm introduction first. What am I going to do with these guys? You know, so I save them for a later date. Never contacted any of them ever again. I just still got them in my old sort of, you know, filofax somewhere. But generally, I stayed for another few months. I really met a lot of great people. One of the guys I met there was called John Antin. He was the top hairdresser in LA. Him and I hung out together a lot, and he went on to create a brand called Jonathan, a brand called Dirt, and he was like LA's very, very top elite hairdresser. There was this TV series called Blowout, and John is in that TV series. His sister Robin went on to create the Pussycat Dolls, and his brother Steve was in the Goonies, but also directed a film with Christina Aguilera and Cher called Burlesque, and did other. So that was the sort of crowd I was rolling with, you know, the young guns of Hollywood, let's call it.
It's just such a great story, Richard, and everything happens for a reason. What a coincidence that you call home and then you get introduced to such a big name that can really help get you some connections out there.
Yes.
And that just that shows the power of just knowing one person. It can open you up to lots of more great people. Can you give us an example of one of your iconic introductions?
I can. So I mean, I'll tell you one that I think was really great. A few years ago, I booked a table at the Ivy in St John's Wood for a film composer called Simon Boswell, who's had an iconic career in the film and music industry. And he wanted to meet someone who he really admired called Elliot Randall, who played guitar in Reeling in the Years, Steely Dan. And so Elliot, I told to meet me and Simon and Simon's wife Lola, because they just got married, at the Ivy. Elliot Randall did guitar work with some of the greatest bands of all time and artists. Do you remember the theme song from Fame? You know,
Yes.
Irene Cara, he's on that. I could reel off a load of names, but I'm not here to really drop too many names. So the Simon Boswell, Elliot Randall introduction was absolutely fascinating. Sitting, listening to them tell stories about the film industry, the music industry, people that we all sort of knew and knew of, you know. That was a great, iconic introduction at the Ivy restaurant. What I'm going to do, because there's background noise up in my cinema room, is move down. I'll talk to you as I go. Is that okay?
Of course, you go ahead.
I mean,
That's absolutely fine.
I hope. Hang on, just put that there for a sec. Hang on. That's just going to put that over here, because
The
obviously
audio is okay, actually, Richard.
Yeah. But there is an interesting introduction. I was going to grab his book. Just hang on one sec. I've got to grab a book off the shelf. Yeah. Is that okay? Are you okay with that? You sure?
Of course. What an interesting guy, Richard Selwyn-Barnett. We're going to talk all about the Funky Shirt Lunch Club at the Grove. Firstly, Richard, why did you start the Funky Shirt Lunch Club? And then I did come to the Grove Hotel, which is an absolutely incredible hotel, 5-star luxury, a big golf course around it, and they have had such big celebrities stay there as well, big names like Madonna and other big names as well. I was lucky. Tom Cruise and Mark Stephen Pooler now was at the Grove Hotel at the Funky Shirt Lunch Club. Why did you start it, and tell us a little bit about that, and I'll share my experience.
Okay,
Richard.
So I'd always done these kind of sort of breakfast, lunches and dinners anyway, and I had my own sort of private members clubs that I invented, that I created. Check my LinkedIn out profile and you'll find out. So I thought, I love the Grove. I've been coming here for 10 or 11 years now. I was speaking one day to my friend Adrian Silas, who's Dr. Masquerade. He wears the most outrageous outfits and funky shirts like you would not believe. Adrian Silas, look him up, Dr. Masquerade. And I said, Adrian, let's start a lunch club, Excuse me one sec.
Of course, don't worry.
Yeah, excuse me a sec. That's okay. Right. So the long story short was, Adrian said, yeah, that's a great idea, let's do it. Who else should we involve? And I said, well, a friend of mine called Bill Morrow, who everybody loves, who's a wonderful man who started Angel's Den, was a good friend. And I said, well, Bill wears really funky shirts as well. And I said, I like a funky shirt. So let's just name it the Funky Shirt Lunch Club. And Adrian said, great idea. Let's get Bill on the phone. So we got Bill involved. And then I was talking to my friend Tony Klinger, who made the film, produced the film The Kids Are All Right with the Who, and did a couple of Deep Purple documentaries. His dad, Michael Klinger, made or produced Get Carter and many other feature films, iconic careers. Tony said, yeah, I'll come to your Funky Shirt Lunch Club. I'll be part of it. It's a great idea. And you met Tony Klinger briefly, I think, at the Grove when you arrived.
I did,
so
yes.
That was Tony. And then the fifth person, we thought, well, there's 4 guys here. We've got to have a lady involved, a girl. So I just met, I've been introduced to a lady called Teo Hendricks, who's the daughter of Jimi Hendrix. So she's a singer-songwriter, drummer, artist, musician, children's author. She's an amazing lady. And she's just got colourful outfits as well. So there were 5 of us. We started the Funky Shirt Lunch Club at the Grove in late 2014. So just over under 7 years ago, nearly. And we did it for about a year. And then after a while, everybody got really busy with other projects. So it kind of went its own way. And I relaunched it just over 2 weeks ago. And you were at the relaunch of the Funky Shirt Lunch Club. And why don't you tell your audience and people listening who you met there, or maybe not who you met, but what it was like, how you experienced it?
So it was not just like a networking event where you share business cards with each other. It really is about getting to know people and forming friendships and relationships. I have been fortunate, and I'm a newbie to the Funky Shirt Lunch Club, and already I am in contact with screenwriters, music event management, film directors, television producers, music artists, and I am already going for coffees with some of them, meeting for meetings with some of them. Like I mentioned, I'm very new at the beginning of the journey with Richard, 2 iconic introductions, but already I'm forming really high profile relationships and even going for coffees with screenwriters, television producers, film directors. So who knows what the future holds, Richard, but I really thoroughly enjoyed the event, having coffees, drinks with such great names, and it was fun as well. I had lots of fun there.
And you met 3 guys from the West Midlands. You met James Abdu and Matt Campbell, who are UB40 management, and also run the producers for Spire Films. Yeah. Then
We're
you met
friends
Glenn
on LinkedIn
McCoy.
now.
Yes. You met Glenn McCoy from Birmingham, a great screenwriter.
Having coffee with Glenn.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, you've met some, and you know, Bruno Tilley was there. Jason Kemp was there. You know, there's loads of great people who you met. That was amazing.
Richard, I really thoroughly enjoy the work that you're doing. I want to personally thank you for the iconic introductions that you're sending my way. I'm looking forward to a long-term relationship with you. Would you like to say anything before we close the show today?
Well, I was going to say some introductions I made. If you can see, well, let's have a look. Can you see the name on that?
Big Fish.
Yeah, so in this wallet, instead of money, there's a lot of people's business cards, yeah, which obviously over the years I put in this very special wallet. Big Fish was a really great, and that's my Geese and Hawks card. There you go. That's where I got all my shirts from, funky shirts and Earth shirts. In this wallet, it are the absolute elite, the cream of the crop of people who run their CEOs, their chairmen, their managing directors of iconic brands, companies, and people that I know personally. I was going to show you just one last thing. This book of mine. Well, a book I wanted to show you just quickly. Obviously, someone who came to one of my events. Hang on 2 seconds. Just give me 2 seconds. I'm moving over here now.
So it really is true. It's not it's not what you know, it's who you know. I definitely am grateful to have met Richard Selwyn-Barnett. I would encourage everyone to go out and connect with Richard Selwyn-Barnett on LinkedIn. That's Richard Selwyn-Barnett. Connect with this man on LinkedIn, and you too can know Richard Selwyn-Barnett and just think of the opportunities that could open up to you.
I think we'll have to do a part 2, running out of time. So this book, Angels in the Sky, which is my friend Mike Flint, he was involved in the launch of Michael Jackson's Thriller album back in the 80s in Hollywood. Mike is an icon, and he was working at Paramount Studios, knows everybody in Hollywood, lovely man. Came over here in 2012, wanted me to connect him with people, so I did lots of major introductions for Mike. One of my favourite comedians, Normal Wisdom. I ended up having a dinner with Norman in Hampstead in a hotel. Lovely man, humble man, great guy. And that was him. This was the guy who I wanted to tell you the story behind Billy Tyrell, who survived the Vietnam War. But more importantly, he relaunched Frankie Avalon's career, who did a song called Beauty School Dropout in Greece.
Yes,
and
I've heard
Frankie's great song was called Venus in '63, a real sort of beautiful song of its day, still is great. Billy remixed it and did it as the disco version in '76. You know, Billy's a great guy, and this book we'd love to get made into a documentary. You know, that's another project. So, the late David Winters, he was in Tough Guys Do Dance. He worked with everybody. I mean, literally, if I told you he worked with Barbara Streisand, Diana Ross, Elvis Presley, Frank Sinatra, you know, Michael Jackson, just Burt Reynolds, you know, I mean, Henry Winkler was the Fonz. Oh my God. Diana Ross, yeah, loads and loads of people. They're all writing amazing tributes to him. So I'd like to do a book in the style of this called You Couldn't Make It Up. So Richard Selwyn-Barnett's life and career story, you couldn't make it up. And there'll be loads of stories about people I've met and people I've introduced. And this finally...
I look forward to that.
Everybody should buy a copy of this book. Philip Saville was a friend of mine, and his wife is, well, he's certainly passed away. He came to the launch of Benny Troy's The Way I've Been in Hampstead, with the late Lindsay DePaul, who sadly passed away 7 years ago. She was a great British songwriter. I don't know how much time we've got.
The show is actually closing, coming to an end. So a couple of minutes and then we will have to close up, Richard.
Well, I mean, let's be honest now.
We could talk all day.
Well, you know, you're in a part of my world here. You know, this is my private cinema room. And there are thousands of films I've collected, I've watched over the years. Some of them I've got a connection to, which is incredible. But like you said, there probably would have to be a part 2.
We can definitely do a part 2 for Mr. Richard Selwyn-Barnett. Today, we have been joined with Richard Selwyn-Barnett. We have been discussing the power of iconic introductions. I have really enjoyed having a conversation with you. Thank you, Richard.
Mark, God bless you. You're a lovely guy. And I'll do loads of introductions for you in the future and bring you some amazing guests.
You already have done loads, but I'm looking forward to even more great iconic introductions. Thank you everyone for watching Brilliance Business TV, conversations with leading experts in business. Bye for now.